the reason I wanted to have this chat is because really, so I run Archie Magazine, which is all about art and architecture in London. And what I find is a lot of the people who get noticed are the architects and designers and contractors, but it's often the people who are making the project a reality who don't see the limelight. So I thought essentially the project that you and I worked on in Battersea Power Station was so beautiful and it's so unique that I thought, why not let's have a chat about it and do a bit of a talk and about a bit about who D2E are. So yeah, let's start there.
Right.
Did Wilkinson Air approach you and say, great, we've got the brief for this project and we want you to do these lifts, these escalators, and we've also got a lift in a chimney? Did and then, because this is obviously quite unusual.
It didn't happen like that at
No,
all.
okay. Right. How did it happen?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I can't remember now, but it was a long time ago, maybe
Yeah.
8 years ago. The M&E firm had an in-house lift consultant, and they were also looking at using an outside consultant to support the internal guy. But I think at the time they didn't realize how big the project was going to get.
Oh, really?
I mean, and so we were approached by one of the directors that recently joined the firm. They decided that they wanted to have this crazy idea of putting a lift in one of the chimneys.
I mean, it's a great idea, I think.
And as you know, the chimneys were all dismantled,
Yeah.
or whatever, knocked down, and they were rebuilt to make the because the structures were questionable and stuff like that. So yes, I mean they had a sound structure in which you could do things.
Yes.
So the idea was to have a lift in the northwest tower, northwest chimney, as a starter, by the way, whereby it would come out the top of the chimney and become an observation deck for everyone to see London, and that was if you like, the concept.
Right. Whose
So
concept was this?
We were asked to.
Whose concept was it, Bill?
Do you know what? That's a fantastic question. I don't know it. I don't know if it was somebody at Wilkinson Air or somebody at Battersea. Actually, it was actually my co-director that was dealing with it all. And unfortunately, my co-director passed away 2 years ago. So we can't. Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
gosh,
Well,
sorry.
Yeah. Goodness. But anyway, so what happened was the first thing is that to have a lift to go through the chimney or a tube, without having any means of escape at certain levels is completely against code.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So the challenge was, well, okay, it's all very well having a lift, I mean, it's challenging but straightforward to put a lift, from ground level to 109 meters up.
Is that what it is? 109 meters?
Yeah, it's called lift 109.
Oh, for that reason, right? I see.
But the challenge wasn't just to put a lift in there. The challenge was, how do you evacuate people if the lift breaks down halfway up? So we were talking with the professional team, the architects, obviously the client and everybody else, and said, this is really, really an engineering challenge, and it needs a lot of work and all the rest of it. And we said, look, Robin and I had experience in previous lives with different projects where, if you like, they're not really a lift, they're more of a ride, an entertainment ride. And I had worked over in the States. I was in charge of product development for Otis. Oh, yes. And within Otis, we had a separate group of engineers that were working exclusively for Disney.
Oh,
Because, you know, the Tower of Terror and all those type of things
yeah.
are actually behind the scenes Otis elevators.
Oh, are they? Oh, I see. Right.
So what we said was that, you know, we would have to go to the lift companies and, you know, come up with ideas on how would they approach the, you know, this issue of evacuation. But then we said, look, the problem is that the market is very buoyant. I mean, you know, London in the last years has been extremely buoyant in terms of, and lift companies, you know, we're selling lifts like it's going, you know, like it was going out of fashion. And why would they want to spend a load of time doing engineering in order to tender for the project?
Right.
We said that that would be the biggest barrier of all, is
Yeah.
actually getting people to be interested in the project, let alone do the project.
Hmm.
So our idea was that we set up a design competition, and Robin was quite categoric, and he said, look, you need to have a design competition and put on the table money for people to do a concept design. And so
Yeah.
that was agreed.
That's a
And
great
so,
idea.
so we had 5 international companies putting forward their design idea, their
Yeah.
design concept. And it was narrowed down to 2. And then, you know, we got into design development with the 2, and then we finalized working with Otis.
Right.
And Otis's solution was actually based upon, they would use the whole of the chimney diameter
Mm.
for the platform, which meant that you could carry, you know, 20, 25 people,
Mm.
which made it commercially viable.
Yes.
But their solution for evacuation was that underneath the platform would carry a small 8-person lift, that if in the event of a breakdown and people were stuck, that lift is all the time operational, but it's being carried up and down underneath,
I
and
see.
you just go for a means of access through the
Right.
floor into the lift. And so the lift, the big lift that everyone sees and goes up and down in, they don't realize that actually underneath it is another
Mm.
lift that's
So,
there just in case.
so how is that one independent? Is it a completely separate like motor that it's running on, or?
Yeah, no, it is a completely independent lift,
Hmm.
but structurally it's attached to the platform.
I see. Right. That's brilliant.
So in other words, it's almost
Yeah.
like the roof of the lift shaft is
Yeah.
continuously going up and down.
Yes. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic idea. Goodness.
Anyway, so that's what happened. So we went to design competition. We finalized the solution with Otis.
Hmm.
And then Otis then started working on the finer details. And to be honest with you, the engineering is phenomenal, because the challenges are, one, it's an open lift shaft, so
Yeah.
you have to have the ability to deal with rain and, you know,
Yes.
water egress and snow.
Of course. Yeah.
And so you've got all of that to deal with, and then you've also got the counter in the summer when you've got the sun belching in on the glass,
Like a
and,
greenhouse effect.
and you got the greenhouse effect, so you have to have aircon. So not only have you got to have the lift cab air conditioned, you have to have the ability to, you know, get out of it if you're stuck,
Yes.
so on. And then the other interesting thing is that because of the spiral staircase to get to the entrance of the
Yeah.
lift, because the lift isn't actually at ground level because it's got all this contraption underneath it.
Right. Of course. Of course. Yeah. So.
No, so the machine room for the lift is it below the lift, below at the bottom of the chimney, right?
Yes.
you've also got the issue of disabled access to get to the lift in the first place because they can't come round.
Yeah.
So there is a disabled access lift, the big lift, and an evacuation lift. So this one lift, this one chimney is accommodating 3 lifts.
That is pretty astonishing. And that is something that nobody would ever pick up if they just go and visit the lift.
No.
Which is quite beautiful, and which is why I want the stories behind the things, because it's fascinating, these things. Brilliant.
It honestly is incredible.
Yeah, goodness me. So are there any other projects around the world that are this challenging? Because that's pretty exceptional.
No,
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 nothing that
no,
you've come up against.
no. I mean, I've been in the industry 55 years.
Really.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and I mean, it's truly remarkable. And as soon as you invited me to come and photograph it, I was like, my God, this is something else. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah, so we go from you know, when the early lift systems were all about there was a driver in the lift,
mm,
and
oh yeah,
you press the button on the landing, and it sent a message to the lift car to say somebody on the 7th floor wants a lift, and the driver will go up there. And then it went into the automation mode
mm,
and slowly progressed. But then, you know, they got into, well, how many lifts do we need in the building? And so
yeah,
the parameters were set that, um, you know, in a peak period in the morning, you know, when people come to work, this is pre-flexi hybrid working and all those jolly good things.
yes,
It was deemed that the criteria for a good lift system was that you should be able to move 15% of the population in a 5-minute period.
right,
You know, and that was it. And so
right,
you worked out, you know, mathematically how that would all be achieved. And
mm,
then, of course, you then started to get into, you know, simple computer programs, and then you started to get more complicated lift programs and stuff like that. And then you have to take into consideration the, you know, the speed of the doors, the acceleration,
yeah,
full speed, deceleration, doors opening, and all those, and then how long it takes for people to go in and out.
right,
You know, if you've got a narrow door, you can only have one person going in
yeah,
or person out. You've got a wider door, you might be able to, all of those sort of things. And so then you start to build up algorithms.
yeah,
And so the criteria still stayed the same, but buildings got taller and taller and taller, and people got more demanding, you know, and they didn't want to go up fast. They wanted to go up smooth and fast.
right,
You've got the and the demographics, you know, so you've got elderly people, young people, you've got cultural things where people don't like people standing close to them. All of these things are starting to make it even more complex.
yeah.
And the algorithms got even more sophisticated. But one of the challenges has always been, okay, you've designed a lift system and everything seems to work, but have you over-engineered or under-engineered? Well, you really know you've under-engineered because you end up with a queue of people
This
in
is
the
a very
lobby.
interesting point. This is a very interesting point, and this is actually a few friends. Like, so I've obviously photographed quite a few of these high rises around in central London, and some friends who work in those buildings have often complained about the new lift system, in that they're often designed these days to go to your floor and only your floor. Whereas, so you'll get there in the morning, and obviously everybody will work on various floors, but because you're going up to, I don't know, 36, the lift has to drop someone off at 25, come all the way back down to you, and go all the way back up again to 36. Why has this been implemented, and why? It's quite a common thing, seemingly. And
But answering your question about, you know, your perception of the queuing and
this is what
25
I've
floors.
been told. So this is like, so
No,
whenever
no,
I'm
no,
empty.
no. But so what happens is that one of the ways in order to move the people in this peak time, they start to say, well, if we've got 6 lifts,
Hmm.
okay, we don't want all 6 going up and down, boom, 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 like this,
Yeah.
because you're using incredible amount of energy and maybe not addressing actually moving people efficiently.
Mm.
So now they started to look at what they call channeling. So in other words, you go into the lobby and you press your floor, and I want to go to 36, and it says, go to lift A.
Yes.
And lift A will go to it will load people up in a zone.
I see. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You come along, you want to go 17, and it say, go to lift B, and it'll try zonal load the lift car. So you minimize the round trips all the time.
Right.
Okay. But then it was then developed even more, because people now actually tell the lift system, I want to go to 17 on the outside. So now this is where it's called hall call destination.
Right.
So it doesn't, so it really is even more interactive and intelligent.
Yes.
And so that's it. But yeah, they do all of that to minimize the amount of round trips.
Right.
So they
to
try
save
and
energy.
they try to fill up the lift car as much as possible to a discrete area of the building.
Right.
Yeah. So it will end up maybe doing 5 stops all consecutively, rather than random 5 stops throughout the building.
I see. So if you're like doing 5 and 40, then you've got all that energy in between that you're exerting, which is not necessary.
And also time, because you're wasting time stopping off at 5 when you want to get to 40.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense. That is really quite interesting. But
one of your questions was why D2E?
Yes, that was one of my questions, because it's not very self-explanatory. Well, to me, it's not.
Okay, so D2E was started 20 years ago. It's our anniversary this year. And thank you. And when I started the company, I'd left Otis, working for Otis in the States as vice president of product development.
Right.
And what was I gonna do? Well, I started to get inquiries from lift consultancies, or elevator consultancies, as they call it in the States. Was I interested in working for them? The answer was no. And then I thought, you know what? It's the only industry I really know. Why don't I actually start something up?
Yeah.
And I collaborated with somebody in the beginning to start the company. But one of the things that I'd experienced was in a lot of the professional services within the construction and property development thing, is that the norm is to have the company by your name.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, famous people like Norman Foster. So you've got Fosters, you've got Richard Rogers, and it was Rogers, and so on, Sterling, and all those sort of things. And they were architects, and it was pretty much the name, the principal's name was the name of the company.
Yes.
But one of the things, and it also happened in M&E as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I didn't want was, I wanted to have a company that had longevity. And so if and when I pass away or give up or whatever, I didn't want the company to fall down.
Right.
Because my Bill Evans is no longer here.
Right.
So anyway, so that was the conversation I had, and and people were saying, this, that, and the other. Anyway, so, and this is a true story. I was over in America with some friends, and I was telling them that I'm going to start, this lift consultancy. And my pal who was with me, Dilip, he said, well, how does it work? He worked for Otis, and he said, well, how does consultancy really work? I said, well, it's straightforward. what happens is you get involved in the design, and then you end up from the design, you create a specification, and you go from the specification to you tender it, and then you get to the project where you get to the project execution. And I drew it on a napkin in this burger bar in West Hertford. He said, D2E. So I looked at him and he said, yeah, design to execution.
Right.
So I said, that's brilliant, D2E. I said, but we can't say design to execution because it's a normal way of speaking in America, but it's certainly not a normal way of speaking in the UK.
No, it's not.
How do you design something to execution?
Yeah, no, it's not.
So
Not like that.
it was easy. Design to elevation.
Perfect. Yeah, perfectly.
D2E. So
Fantastic.
anyway, that's how D2 is, and you know, I mean, today we are D2E. You've
Yeah.
seen us with our logos.
Yes.
On my fleece here, D2E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. See, little things like that that I actually love finding out, because there's always an interesting story. As you say, if it's not the person's name, there will be something behind it, and it's often quite good.
So the interesting thing is, Neil, that I have been working over the last 2.5 years on writing a book.
Oh, yes.
And the book is going to be published on the 18th of December.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
big.
and it's full of all the war stories.
Fantastic.
But in principle, the book is hold on. The book is, this is the front cover.
Brilliant. That's a beautiful shot. Beautiful
Right.
image.
Right. So that,
yeah,
it's, the book is called When They Walk Through the Door, and
right.
The book is all about the people that have been inspirational in my career.
Yeah.
So it's not about me, it's about a load of people when they walk through the door. What are they like and what did I learn and all the rest of it, right?
Fantastic, yeah.
And one of the things that we worked on was actually putting some illustrations into the book. So, you know, getting photos of, you know, past things.
Yes.
But the problem was that I had all these, you know, photographs, and they were all of different quality, black and white, you know, all this sort of stuff. I struggled for quite a long time here in Portugal to find someone that could actually enhance all of these photographs and have them as standard. And lo and behold, I ended up, not in desperation, because I was still, you know, I was enjoying the challenge of finding someone to help. I went to this place that frames pictures, and you can see I've got lots of pictures in here. Quite a lot of them being framed by this company. And this guy said to me, why don't you get somebody to actually sketch all your photos? Instead of having them as photos, have them as sketches.
Brilliant,
So we ended up, with, I found this artist, a Brazilian guy, right? Didn't speak a word of English, but I gave him a couple to start with.
Yeah.
And he started sketching all these, and I've got,
fantastic. Goodness me.
I've got monumental.
That's a huge portfolio.
Right. And all of these have been put into the book, all these in different places. And this is his concept.
Fantastic.
So you can see the power station.
Yep.
I told him about the power station.
Yeah.
This is, if you like, me.
Yes.
Right. But this is the fascinating thing, is these two doors here, and I didn't know this, and incredible, inside the power station is one lift that had a preservation order on it, and it's got these very ornate bronze doors.
Oh, really?
And he had done the research, and he said,
How did
"Here's
he?
your cover," and it was his inspiration.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic.